Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Figge, and I will be your instructor for Women in Criminal Justice. This is a class I think that it was made for. I do like all the classes, though, that I teach for Bay Path, and I notice that I have a couple of students in this class that I've had before, and I always enjoy having students return. So, my background in criminal justice is that I was a police officer for 32 years with the city of Westfield. I was an instructor in the Mass Criminal Justice Training Academy for 35 years, and I've taught in many different locations, including different states. I co authored the original rape school for the state of Massachusetts with Susan Cronin, and I taught that for many, many years, a very long time, probably 30. I taught also in the academy domestic violence. I taught juvenile justice. I taught courtroom. Interview and interrogation were two of my favorites. And I also did injury recognition and assorted other crimes that involved what they like to call the soft crimes, which I call the hard crimes. They're the hard crimes because the victims are real. They are, they're your neighbors or your sisters or your friends, and they're hard. So about 20 years ago, there was a group of women that were police officers that started Women in Law Enforcement, and we had a large group of women that belonged to this. And after I retired, there's nobody that took it over, but we had it going for about at least 20 years, I would say. And we did scholarships, and we really encouraged because when you look at the statistics for women in criminal justice, the numbers are very low. They're much better in probation, they're much better in victimology, and they're much better in having to do with the jail, but they're not in law enforcement. The numbers are statistically around 11.9 and have been that for a long time. And I think of all the women that I worked with, well, there weren't many. I worked with myself. I was the only female for the first 8 years. And then my partner came on, and she was fabulous to work with for the longest period of time until I retired. But in between that time, we had women come and women go because it's a really tough job on women. And I don't mean outside, I mean the inside mechanisms. During that time period that I was a police officer, I also had two children. I had a daughter and a son. So my son was born in 1985. That would be the year that I also was fired for being pregnant and had to get an attorney to get my job back because my chief at that time felt that women should stay home with their children. It's not that long ago. That's 1985. And I wasn't the only one. My very closest friend in police work was a state trooper. She was pregnant at the same time, and she was fired. About 2 weeks before they let her come back, they made her go out on the line in uniform, and she had her baby 2 weeks later. They tried to prove a point. For my second baby, I thought it would be better, but they still made me every 10 days get a note from the doctor that I could do my job. And in doing my job, that meant that there's no light duty in police work. There's no sitting behind the desk. There's no hiding. It brought me back to when I was hired. When I was hired, there was about 15 of us in line ready to do our interviews. And I was number 5. I was the only one that didn't have any preferential treatment because I was not a minority and I was not a veteran. And those all get professional status, and I'm really good with that. And because we really need to make our numbers of people indicative of what our society is. We need to be able to have police officers need to look and be the neighborhood. But so I was fifth in line, and everybody went in and did their 10 to 15 minute interview. Mine was an hour and 15 minutes. An hour and 15 minutes. And the questions they asked was one of the questions they asked was, who would make my husband's breakfast if I had to work nights at 12 to 8? Well, I said, if he couldn't figure that out himself, then I probably shouldn't marry him. They didn't like my education. But then I thought back to that time period too. When I got married, I was, got married in a Catholic church, and they made me go to pre-K. And at that time, the priest got up in front of everybody and said, a man needs to be in charge of the household. So if your wife gets out of line, every once in a while you need to slap her. And I thought about that. And I said, turned to my husband, I said, just so you know, that will never happen. I might have said something else, but we'll leave that to your imagination. But it didn't happen because I was pretty strong about that. I was brought up in a family of 6 girls and 1 boy. My father always said, you need to have a job because you need to be able to kick somebody to the curb when they, hurt you. If they hurt you, you need to kick them to the curb and not look back. And I thought that was a really important lesson in life that was given to me. And I hope that during this class, I can help you guys do that as well. Realize that you have such great potential. I just finished a class and I left that class thinking, wow, this is a really great group of women in this class. And I do love teaching Bay Path College for that reason. I teach non-traditional. So why do I teach non-traditional? I was non-traditional. I was 40 when I got my master's. I had 2 young kids. I had a father that was dying. And I said, I can do this. I can do this. It almost killed me, but I did it. And the problem is when you go back, you try to do better than everybody else. Or at least that was me because I was like probably one of 2 females in the class. And I was like, okay, I can do better than because I'm smarter than them. Or at least that's what I told myself because I wanted to be above reproach as having this wonderful job. And it was a wonderful job. I'm going to tell you it was a wonderful job. So I also know the trials and tribulations of being a non-traditional woman going back to college, and I know that things happen. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you as well. In this class, there's some pretty strict guidelines, and some of them, if you have a legitimate reason. Now, keep in mind, I was a police officer for 32 years, and I taught at a police academy with most men. So I've heard every excuse there is in the world. I mean, I had one kid that had to go through about 8 grandparents dying before I said, you know what, I'm not buying it. But if you have a legitimate reason why your papers are not in, you need to contact me before they're due. Let me know because I know life happens. And the first thing I will tell you in life is family is always first. And I will help you. I will work with you. I think you could ask anybody that's had me before that I will always go to bat for my students and I will always do whatever I can to make them get to that finish line because it's that important to me that you get to that finish line. You need to be the leaders. So if you have a legitimate reason why your paper is not in, and we've had some really doozy ones that are legitimate, like we had some people in Connecticut that had no internet for like 4 or 5 days. It's hard to do a paper when you have no internet. So we added time to that. We've also had this pandemic. We've added time to that in the past. Which brings me to we are at the policy. If your work is late, you lose 30% of your grade. So if you have 100 on your paper, you're going to get a 70, even if it's 10 minutes late. So you need to make sure you let me know that if you're having an issue. Another thing I like to know is if you're having an issue trying to write the paper, if you can't figure out what where your sources are, I like helping with that. Send me a text, give me a call, give me an email. I gave everyone my cell phone number. You can always text me. I always have it on silent, so I will tell you that texts are better for me. And my cell phone number is 413-883-3537. Again, 413-883-3537. So that's a little bit about me, and I think you know what my expectations are is that I also hope that you expect of me that I will go on my computer every single day in the morning and every single day at night to see what has been added in, what needs help with, if somebody sent me an email. But if you need something right away, make sure you send me that text, and I will do whatever I can to get to you on that. I know we have you from all over. The other thing I'm going to ask you, from all over the country, we have students in this class. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do is be very respectful of each other. I tend to teach controversial, or I tend to bring up controversial subjects. They may not necessarily be mine, but they might be something to make you think both sides, because I like to think of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good, the bad, and the ugly is we need to look at both sides of every coin and see what the real picture is. All right. Well, I appreciate you listening to this. If you have any questions, give me a call. Thank you. Bye-bye.